Hey folks, welcome to the 30 Days to Learn Adobe After Effects course. My name is Vincent Nguyen, and today in this lesson we're going to be exploring the three different types of camera tools within After Effects. So in the last lesson we talked about 3D layers and how they react with 3D space, and that's pretty cool. You can control a layer's position, rotation in the 3D environment here. But what if you wanted to station your objects down and kind of have a virtual 3D camera so you can kind of navigate and rotate and orbit through space and look at your 3D layers? How do we do that? Well, first thing you want to do is you want to create a new camera. We can't use the camera tools here if we do not have a camera. So if we go to Layer, New, you can actually create a camera. And for the most part, two node will work best. One node is a little bit different. These are a little bit more complicated here, and they're more technical terms. So let's go ahead and ignore all this. This is kind of very technical terms here. I want to focus on the right column here. So first off, you can name your camera. I just usually call it camera. And then you have the presets, which if you're familiar with lenses and photography, you should know that a 15 millimeter lens is a very wide angle lens. And then if you have a 200 millimeter, that's a very telephoto zoomish lens here. So pretty much what you want to do is pick the appropriate lens. Usually a mediocre fine lens would be a 50, a 35, or a 24. That's usually good for After Effects stuff. For most of my works, I usually pick either a 24 or a 20 because I like to do a lot of wide angle lenses and wide angle shots. So usually I pick kind of a wide angle lens. You have your zoom parameters here, which is not very important because we can always change a little bit later. And then you also have depth of field, which pretty much allows you to kind of add that nice bokeh effect or nice blur when things are far away or very, very close to the camera. You'll see in a second. I'm going to uncheck it for now. And then we can hit OK. And that's just going to create a camera for us, and usually nothing really changes unless you pick a really wide angle lens and such like that. So you have your camera. You can actually move and rotate your camera same way as you rotate layers in 3D space. You can hit P on the keyboard and you can zoom the camera in the Z axis and such like that. So you can move your camera pretty much like any other layer here. But what I want to focus on is the actual camera tools up here. So next to the rotation tool, we have these camera tools here. And if you click and hold, you can select any one you want. I like to hit the shortcut C to navigate through. So if you hit C on the keyboard, you can see that I'm navigating through the different types of camera tools here. So I say 3 when there's actually 4, and I say 3 because the unified camera tool is pretty much the tool that has all of these combined. If you have the unified camera tool and you have a 3-button mouse, you can navigate through the different types of tools by clicking. For an example, if I right click, I get the orbit tool. If I right click, I get the pan tool here. So the unified camera tool is pretty much all these tools combined, but I usually don't use it. The first tool I want to talk about is the orbit camera tool here, and this allows you to orbit around in 3D space similar to Cinema 4D's and 3ds Max camera here. So if I just click, I can kind of orbit around a center point here. You can kind of see what it does. It's just kind of orbiting around a central location, and you kind of orbit around, do all these cool orbit moves here. Very straightforward. The next tool is the Track XY camera tool, and this pretty much moves your camera in the X and Y axes, so you're physically kind of moving your camera in a different position here. So kind of like a pan tool. Now the next tool is the Track Z camera tool, and I use this tool quite a bit, and this allows you to kind of zoom in your camera, so you're actually tracking in the Z axis, so you're actually moving into 3D space here. And you can use this to kind of track and zoom into things. And if you hold down the Shift key on your keyboard, you can actually zoom in at larger increments. And this is a pretty useful tool for creating flybys or zooming effect or zooming into Earth and such like that. So as you can see, I have a very simple scene set up, just 3 cubes in 3D space. They're all in different positions in space. And you can see that if I zoom through them, you can see that they're just flat 2D layers in 3D space. Now I want to go ahead and talk about the additional options within the camera tool. So if I toggle down the switch, close the transform properties, we can see additional camera options. And as you can see, as before, we have the ability to change the zoom, and it's keyframeable here, as well as the focal distance, aperture, and blur level. And these are very standard photography terms, so you may want to brush up on those. But if I enable depth of field here, you can see that nothing happens. But if we change the focal distance, so as you can see, our center square layer is actually quite in focus and it's nice and sharp. And as you can see, the squares behind the main square is nice and blurred out. And this kind of simulates depth in real life, and it kind of adds the more realism that you would get in real life when you have depth. So definitely play around with the depth of field. It really gives you the ability to achieve a more realistic effect and to achieve more of a vision of depth within After Effects. And play around with the focal distance in the aperture here. You can also play around with the blur levels, or how blurred do you want these blurred objects to be here. Now, once again, the camera tool is a very complex tool. There's a lot to understand and there's a lot of concept to grasp, but I think that this should give you a general overview of how the camera tools work and how the camera works within After Effects. Now, in the next lesson, we're going to be talking about the different types of camera views and different types of perspective within After Effects for more precise positioning and such like that. So definitely look forward to that. If you guys have any further questions or comments, leave them in the forums and I'll get to them as soon as I can. And once again, guys, my name is Vincent Wynn, and I'll see you guys in the next lesson. Bye, guys.